Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Silver Hill Funding's DIY marketing tips for marketing pros, as we will help you to create cost-effective marketing strategies that generate real results and get you more business. A couple of housekeeping items. We will be sharing this presentation to all attendees. So there's a couple forms in there. There's a couple of infographics that have print that's too small to really make out on a webinar probably. So just rest assured that you'll be getting a copy of the presentation. It'll be easier to see once it's on your own screens. Also, questions. Since we have so many folks on that registered, we had over 300 registrants. We probably expect over 100 people to attend today. So obviously, it'll be hard to make it an open question format. But we want to make it questions available to you. So there is a question box, and feel free to type your questions in as they come to you, and we will either handle them on from time to time, or if depending on the time, we will at least address as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. So feel free to enter your questions as we go. So today's team, I'm Joe Altamonte. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Business Development at Silver Hill Funding. Joining us a little later will be the Vice President of National Sales, and that is Juan Barcelo, and the author of this presentation today, and our Director of Marketing, Zach North. You will hear from him on as we go along as well today, as we'll be taking some poll questions as well, so you can use that functionality on the presentation. The agenda for today is we'll start by talking about your marketing foundation, where to, a good jumping off point and a starting point. We'll get into the power of content. That's a big focus of today's presentation, and how to use content as an inexpensive way and a very powerful way to reach more borrowers. Setting your priorities. There are so many tactics that are available for you in today's marketing world, and with so much available on the internet, sometimes it can be overwhelming. So we'll help you really organize your thoughts as you put together your priorities for marketing. And then Juan will take us through how to get started with Silver Hill. So getting into the specific program. So once you get your message out there, it would be important to know at least one of your vendors, and that is Silver Hill Funding. So let's begin with your marketing foundation. And I think it's very important to understand the definition of marketing. And that is the ability to craft a message where you can create awareness so that consumers know who you are, consumers recognize and like your brand, and a message that also builds trust in your brand. And when you have these three ingredients, that means borrowers and prospects are more likely to do business with you. If you stick to this formula, the know, like, and trust model, you will have a much better chance of growing your business. And that's a very common model as far as marketing is concerned. So we'll flip the script for a second here, and I'll bring in Zach, and he's going to take us through our first poll question of the day to gauge where you guys stand as far as your marketing efforts are concerned. Zach?
Hey, Joe. Thanks. So our first question is, do you have a dedicated marketing team at your disposal, yes or no? So I'll give you a few seconds to answer that. And Joe, it looks here that around 95% of our attendees say no, they do not have a dedicated marketing team, which makes total sense for this webinar. So I think we have a great group of people here.
Well, perfect. And we're talking to the right people, that's for sure. And even if some of you that do have a dedicated marketing person or a marketing team, there's still some great ideas. But the fact that most of you don't, I think this is going to be right up your alley, because most of the things we'll talk about today will have to do with ways you can do marketing inexpensively and with not as much effort as it would be if you were a full-time marketing person. So here's the first problem, though, we talk about, especially in 2019 when we talk about the marketing funnel being broken. The sales funnel is no longer linear like it was 15 or 20 years ago when people would take predictable steps towards through the buying cycle, from research through to making the decision. With so much information readily available online and elsewhere, prospects no longer follow that predictable path. And because of this, we can spend too much time and energy trying to acquire leads, to not enough focus on nurturing prospects, and not enough time cultivating relationships and building loyalty and repeat business. So we look for that, where can we get the most leads? But we forget the fact that a lot of our business is recurring, or should be recurring, especially if we've done a good job for them in the first place. So instead of a funnel, you can create your own marketing hourglass and strategy and dictate which tactics you will use to accomplish each of your marketing goals. For instance, on the screen, we're showing examples of which tactics create knowledge of your brand, how to get consumers to like you, trust you, and so on. So your website, blog content, social media, there are ways to get people to like you. Doing webinars like this and marketing materials and white papers build trust, and so on down the line, down through where you champion your own accomplishments and ask people to refer business to you. And note how when we talk about filling the gaps, we're talking about doing things, identifying the areas where you can improve your own marketing plan and adding in tactics and strategies to do the things that you might not do enough of. So as you look at these examples, think of the goals and tactics that are missing from your marketing efforts and come up with a strategy to implement those. Note the focus on the screen on the buy and repeat stages, and note that that's not lead generation. More so, it's about converting and retaining customers. So we're talking here about loyalty, repeat business, referral business, and so on. And building that, as we'll get into the tactics in a little bit, we'll talk about how you can do that in a way that might not cost any money or very minimal expense as well. So this might be sounding pretty obvious, but it's not as obvious as you might think for a very specific reason. It is critical to your marketing success to do more of what works and less of what doesn't work. So one reason, as obvious as that sounds, that many folks actually don't follow this simple rule is they don't track their efforts, which means they don't know what is working and they don't know what is not working. So if that sounds familiar, it's time to hold yourself or your marketing team or your vendors that are doing some of these things for you accountable. If you're paying someone to do SEO or pay per click, understanding which of those tactics are working, and within those tactics, which of the keywords, for instance, which of the ads, which of the messages are bringing more borrowers in is very important. And since 95% of you don't have your own marketing person or marketing team, and you're focusing on loans every day, and trust me, I was making calls yesterday, and it was probably the most difficult day to get through to you because you're so busy, you can't possibly be worrying about those things while you're trying to squeeze in the end of month priorities. So start holding the vendors, start holding your tactics very accountable to what's working and what doesn't. Here are some great questions to ask yourself to really start to identify the things that work. So identifying the marketing efforts that work and those that don't, you can find that out by asking, does this consistently generate business for me? Connecting with your audience and not just reaching them, but engaging with them. Do you know your ROI? How much am I spending? What have I generated from these particular things that I'm doing? Is that justifiable? Is what I'm bringing in making up for what I'm using in terms of money and effort? And are there things I can automate? You'll be surprised that, our managing director will tell us to stop writing emails. We make very personable templates that we can customize to each person that we send it to. But again, to write a whole body of an email isn't the most effective way to use your time. So what can we do that's automated, that's still personable and still reaches our audience? So I talked about some tools and some forms that we're going to make available to you today. This is one of them. Again, I'll reiterate, because a lot of folks were joining as we were getting going. We will share copies of this presentation. So this is a page that you can take right out of the presentation and use moving forward to create your marketing strategy. And a great way to document and plan what you're going to do to reach people throughout the buying cycle. So what are some tactics on how you're going to acquire leads? How are you going to make sure that when they come in the door that you continue to engage with them? How are we going to close the deal, which many people feel is the most important part of that process? And how do we retain business? How do I get either more business out of that particular borrower or business from that borrower's contacts and referral business? So, these are the things that we want to strategize. Now, what we're here to do is to help you identify what works. So first of all, if a tactic does not fit into one of those sections, we're going to drop it from our marketing mix, okay? Because it's not helping us accomplish any one of these goals. So if you're figuring out that, I'm doing this, but it really doesn't help me get leads. If I'm not getting a lead, I can't nurture and close them, and certainly can't retain a lead with that particular tactic, and so forth. So what does that look like once it's completed? To help guide you through this form, here's another page that you'll want to bookmark when you get this presentation, and that's an example of things that you can do to obtain each one of these goals. For instance, there are 3 tactics that you can use to acquire leads. LinkedIn, go to a trade show, that's a great place to acquire business cards, word of mouth and referrals. And notice none of those tactics that we're showing you right here really involve that much of an expense other than your time. Also note on some of these items here that there are things that we've identified that you should look into automating. Obviously, emails to a database should be automated. Closed loan posts on LinkedIn. You can set up ways that once a loan closed, you can automatically post a case study or a review of that loan that you closed. We do that at Silver Hill. If you follow us on LinkedIn, you'll see that when a loan closes, there's a story that gets posted onto LinkedIn. Thank you notes, of course, is another way that you can send an automated communication with your borrower that's specific to that particular borrower. Again, so automated does not have to mean impersonal either. So identify this page when you get a copy of this presentation, and certainly make a note of it as well. So a major focus of today's presentation is going to be on content marketing. And one of the reasons we feel that this is very effective is that it allows businesses to connect with their customer base and target audiences beyond just advertising and sending marketing messages. It's about providing education, services, and insights. It's about engaging with borrowers over and above simply a message with a call to action. So it can build trust and get consumers to, again, like your brand, trust your brand, and be more likely to engage with you. So before we go into some of the proof in the pudding, I'll turn it back over to Zach, who has another poll question for the audience.
Sure, thanks, Joe. Last second question now. How often do you publish content on social media or your website? Never, a few times per year, once per month, once per week, or several times per week? So I'll give you a little bit of time to answer that one. Okay, so Joe, it looks like the majority here says a few times per year, but more than 25% of people never post content. And there's plenty of reasons why. It's not easy to do, and oftentimes we feel like we just don't have the resources to get it done. But I think Joe's going to explain a few ways that you actually can publish content more often and see more benefit from it.
Precisely, Zach, and it goes to what I was talking about earlier too. With we're talking to 100 mortgage professionals today, not marketing professionals, and especially if you run a small shop, it is very difficult to put aside time and get some content posted on a regular basis. But that's why we're here. We're going to help you with that. So I mentioned how effective content marketing is, and I don't want you to just take my word for it. Zach has done a great job of compiling some really good proof here of why content matters so much in today's day and age. So, you look about that first statistic, which is astounding, but we know that. Content helps your SEO efforts. That's the proof right there. 95% of people only looking at the first page, and it's critical to be on page 1 of search results, because pretty much, like the old adage, where's the best place to hide a body? That's right, page 2 of Google, because nobody gets to page 2 of Google. And if content's going to help your SEO results or your search engine marketing results, then obviously that's a very important thing to do. Content marketing generates more leads for less money. Blogs can be effective in generating additional leads. Consumers like blogs because they educate them, and in turn, they become more trustful of your brand. Consumers trusting companies that generate their own content. Okay, so if they're not just relying on independent research, but they're actually educating the people that they're going to do business. And small companies tend to recognize the importance of content marketing more so than large companies. Not a whole bunch, but it looks like smaller organizations tend to engage more in content, probably because it's a less expensive way to market to a big audience and still get a great message out there. So some very good information that you'll want to bookmark when you get this particular presentation. So here is an example of an infographic, really powerful, that talks about what we just mentioned about SEO and why it's important to show up on the first page of Google and Yahoo and Bing. Content improves your page rank. And why is that so important? Because as you'll see in these statistics, especially when you get the presentation to really look at this, is that the click-through or the response rates based on the position that your ad shows up really improves. Number one, depending on what page you're on, 95% of them are on the first page, but improves by the position of your particular ad as well. And so since content improves your Google page rank, it's going to be very important to engage in a content marketing effort. Some examples of what we're talking about. So we practice what we preach, and you'll notice that there is content that we push out and there's content that we host on our website that can build awareness. So we came out with an interest-only option for commercial real estate loans. We just didn't put it on our matrix and hope that you saw it. We had to educate and announce and build awareness. Likewise, for just simply educating. So rather than saying Silver Hill's cool because we have an interest-only option, why would somebody even want an interest-only commercial loan? When does it make sense? This is educational, and it's not Silver Hill specific. And that's going to be important too, as we make that point in a couple of slides as well. And another thing that I think we all like and probably don't do enough of is we close a loan. We really want to build trust in our product. And what better way to build trust than to ask people to vouch for us and ask for testimonials? What good are they, though, if they're not being seen? So what strategies do we have to promote these? Well, we host them on our website. We post them on LinkedIn. We actively promote our content. We don't just let it sit there. So that's important as well because it really builds trust. To hear Reginald Hudson tell us we're great is a lot more effective than Silver Hill saying we're great. So what does this mean in terms of content marketing? Try to stay away from what we call the spray and pray method, right? So, you're being probably solicited by advertising, either publishers or agencies that want you to come out there and send out 500,000 impressions a month to some geo-targeted audience, or, this is a small market or when you're talking about small commercial loans. So content's a great way to find the people specifically invested in the things that you offer. And it's more of a it's more of a method to get people incoming than it is to go wave your arms and say, hey, everybody, if you need a commercial loan, come to me. So being the expert and using your expertise to provide content that's meaningful and that makes you look like an authority in your field is a great way to attract people that are already interested in the things that you offer. So content is the great equalizer in this sense. So if you focus on that model of getting people to know you, putting out a message that gets them to like you, and giving them content that builds trust, you are going to make an impact. Now, in today's day and age, where do we start? What do we do to get people to understand, to follow this know, like, and trust model? So a great example of a mapping process that aligns content marketing tactics with the buying cycle is on this page. This is an example of what I told you might be hard to make out on this screen, but when we show you the presentation, you can blow it up to any size you like and see some of the examples that we're talking about. In short, this infographic talks about aligning each particular tactic with a specific stage of the buying cycle. So, for instance, articles and infographics can help build awareness, while webinars and demos can educate during the consideration stage. Data sheets, case studies can aid during the purchase stage. So what do you have the ability to do, and what goals do they help you accomplish? It goes back to that blank form that we showed you earlier, that you can plug in what tactics can help you reach specific goals during the path to purchase. Another thing that's very important when you talk about content marketing, we talk about the concept of digital headquarters and creating content that will send traffic to your digital headquarters. Now, it's typically your website. If you're part of a bigger company, this may mean that you're not entirely within the website's not entirely within your control, but you likely do have a page where you can click on it and go to your specific page. That you have control over to an extent, and you can treat that as your personal headquarters. Now, if you're a smaller outfit, we would encourage you to resist the temptation to go with bargain websites or to use your step-nephew who just graduated Western Podunk Tech with a graphic design minor. One of the best investments you can make is in a professional website that is built to convert users into customers and that is built around search engine optimization. So do your homework, and if you're doing it yourself, use a trusted vendor, or if you're using an agency, make sure you do your homework on an agency that they can deliver what they promise as far as traffic, SEO, and conversions. Work smart. So here you see some keys to effective content. You can use your current assets across several different marketing channels, many of which can be done with minimal or no investment. YouTube, mass emails, LinkedIn, infographics and posts, webinars. These are investments of time more so than they are financial. And one thing we talk about, and this kind of came out when I talked about testimonials, and that it's nice to really make the message consumer-centric or customer-centric as opposed to self-serving content. So make your message customer-centric, just as we tend to be put off by self-centered people. Borrowers, prospects, consumers often have the same reaction to self-centered marketing. So some don't just buy because they don't like being sold. So instead, try to use language that makes them want to buy. So you see those messages on the right side of the screen, scripts for sales teams to share on LinkedIn as opposed to just putting out a press release on your company website. What are the benefits and drawbacks of a stated income loan rather than our stated income loan? case studies from great customers instead of see our latest closed loans. So, try to avoid that language that makes it sound like this ad is all about making my company money, and makes it more so about what is going to be the benefit to the consumer if they want to know more information on these topics. Zach mentioned a really important point. I mentioned it a little earlier as well. We talk about the time commitment. So plan your messages. Live by a calendar. You can set a finite amount of time to market each day to create those plans. Stick to a timeline of when you're going to release these tactics as well. So you don't want to just say, okay, on each Monday, I'm going to do a blog post. I'm going to get my marketing out in 2 hours. You want to stagger and pace your spend and pace your energy so you are constantly reaching prospects at each stage of the buying cycle. So it doesn't have to be, a full-time job when you already have a full-time job. It's much easier to manage your process by sticking to a calendar. Similarly, we'll talk about managing your priorities. So we've talked today about how marketing today can be overwhelming. There are so many tactics. Where do you even start? You're getting bombarded probably from advertising vendors, bombarded from messages about how writing a blog is the best, tweeting is the best. Can you create a flyer, write a phone script? Well, we can help you with a lot of that stuff, but let's back up and talk about how we can say, okay, this is a lot of stuff here. How can I plan this so that whatever tactic I'm using is the most effective use of that tactic? So here on the screen, you see how much work goes into sending a post out on LinkedIn. When we read them, it tends to look like, oh, this person just stream of consciousness, put out a post, linked it to an article, and hoping for the best. Well, there's some steps you can take to make sure you're really utilizing your time in the most effective way. Make sure that the message is consistent across all of your social platforms. It's a great idea to test your message and test your post with known clients, people that you trust and that are going to give you candid feedback. Take those things that you learn and then use it to inform the content that you post. And then finally, post it and work smart. So you can distribute this post in several ways. You can share it, of course, on LinkedIn. Make sure it's also on your website. You can email it out, and so on. And if you have, Chamber of Commerce website, if they're looking for content, which they almost always are, great place to post your content is a Chamber of Commerce website, and other examples like that. So let's bring it all together from a marketing standpoint. So begin with your goals in mind, right? Knowing what you want to accomplish is going to be half the battle. Do the things that work more often. Do less of what doesn't work. How do we know that? By identifying it, by tracking. Tracking your efforts is going to inform this decision or these decisions. Remember, inbound over outbound, it costs much less to answer the phone than it does to dial the phone. Make people come to you with effective content that draws in the people that you're looking to target. And prioritize your marketing strategies. Identify good prospects and focus more on them and less on the spray and pray method, as we like to say. Finally, we're not done helping you from a marketing standpoint. We have a great website. If you see the link on the screen there, silverhill.com, silverhillfunding.com/register. I really encourage you to check that out and register because it'll give you free access to a lot of things that can really jumpstart your efforts on a lot of the inexpensive ways we talk about marketing. For instance, we have email scripts and phone scripts there, so you don't have to create those on your own. Examples of blog posts, examples of things that we've done on our website, videos, tutorials that are short that you can take in a quick amount of time. We have 2-minute educational videos, and we have courses on there as far as small commercial lending goes. So take advantage of those things. We have a whole marketing toolkit that you can download and use to your advantage. And many of those things will give you a jump start on a lot of the tactics that we talked about today. So I'm going to transition now into to Juan. Before I do so, I'll just remind you that your questions are welcome. Please utilize the question box on the website. And thank you for your time for the marketing piece. I'm going to talk about we're going to turn it over to Juan now, and Juan's going to take us through getting started with Silver Hill. So Juan?
Hey, Joe, thanks a lot. Great job covering this important information. Usually marketing is our, most sought after topic by the broker crowd. So great job today, Joe.
Thanks, Juan.
Okay, guys, so thanks for joining us. I want to talk a little bit about what we do. We try to add value by providing the marketing content information for you guys, while we also want to talk about, how our solutions can help you drive business for your commercial clients. So Silver Hill Funding, basically we are an alternative solutions lender, and that's an alternative solution to, banks or agency financing, where borrowers have been turned down for one or many different, reasons. So, one of the things we like to do is focus on our sweet spot and what that is. Do we want to do a poll question?
Yeah.
Let's do a poll question.
Hey, Joe, this is the last poll question here, having to do with small balance commercial loans. We just want to get an idea about who's with us here and how experienced our attendees are to help guide Juan as he talks the next few minutes. So let's take a few seconds here. How many commercial loans have you closed in the last 12 months? Okay, so Joe, it looks like our top result is around a little over 30%. Who have closed 1 to 3 commercial loans in the past 12 months.
Yeah, the good thing is it looks like everybody's basically in every category. So we have folks that have closed none to all the way to 10 plus small balance commercial loans. So a great mix of brokers. We're glad you're joining us today. Some of you may be familiar with our products. Some of you may not be. And so this is why we include a little portion about what we do to see if we can make that connection with you and maybe add, to your set of products that you already sell. So as I mentioned earlier, we like to position ourselves, between banks and, private money, hard money, by helping borrowers in certain situations. So when does it make sense? When borrowers have been turned down by banks, borrowers with maturing loans, borrowers that are coming off of a bridge loan, which is a short-term, high-rate loan, borrowers who don't report income on tax returns or who don't want to use their tax returns to finance a commercial property. And finally, borrowers who want to use their commercial property to tap into some equity for either reinvestment in a business, in another property, or for working capital, covering payroll, adding inventory, any one of those reasons. So a wide variety of solutions that we can offer. So again, the focus is on anyone with an interest in a commercial property, whether they're going to buy one or they own one, whether they're an investor that is growing a portfolio of properties, or whether it's a small business owner running their business out of one of their commercial properties. We basically can help. Either or. We always like to also show, some of the solutions that we've provided with folks. So this one in Colorado was a cash-out refi of a mixed-use property. Business owner wanted to tap into the equity in their property, but did not wish to produce tax return documentation. So that's the kind of folks that we help that are in those situations looking for those solutions. Here we go, Pennsylvania, multifamily. In this case, an investor wanted to add a multifamily investment to their portfolio and was looking for a 30-year fixed rate solution, which is a rarity in the commercial world. We actually are one of the first, I think maybe the first, small balance commercial lender that has introduced a 30-year fixed rate product similar to a residential loan, and it's become a very, very popular product on the small balance commercial side. So this was an investor who's probably graduating from investing in single family homes where a 30-year mortgage is common to, a more complex property type like a 6-unit multifamily or an 8-unit multifamily where, they wanted to keep their terms similar to what they're used to. Very important, brokers can make up to 5 points with our deals. We are commercial lenders, so we do pay yield spread, as well as the broker being allowed to make origination points. So on the front end, on the back end, you can make points. On average, folks make between 2 and 3 points, but we have done many deals, where a broker is getting, up to 5 points. So very exciting, and it's a great way for the broker community to make money. We only charge $3,500 in fees. We don't charge any points or anything else. What we want to do is originate a mortgage loan that's out there for 30 years, where we service the loan and we stay with the client for the life of the loan. We've also developed an additional way. I always tell Zach, this is like, the free money program. We've also developed this alliance program, which basically pays additional yield spread, if you will, to brokers that are closing multiple units within a given month. So usually it has to start at 2 units at least and all the way up. And we basically are giving you free money for sending us more business. So we want to see unit count, not so much volume, dollars, but more units. So we're encouraging our broker community to do that. I think last month in June, we paid out a total of $38,000 in free money to brokers. So there it is. I knew it was there, Joe. So a good thing I remember it. I see all the emails, right, Zach? So this is a program that folks have really been taking advantage of. They're sending us, multiple loans to one investor, people that are buying portfolios or refinancing portfolios. So we've been able to do multiple loans to one borrower, and the broker has benefited with free money. So let's talk about what we do. I mean, we're in a small balance business. We like to do loans generally under $1 million is our sweet spot, but we can do loans up to $5 million. But most importantly, what commercial properties we do finance. So your traditional multifamily is an apartment building. Mixed use is a residential and commercial use. Many times you're going to have residential on top and commercial on the bottom. Okay. And then our tier 2 properties are commercial properties. We're, one of the few lenders that offers such a wide variety of property types. Many lenders either do multifamily and mixed use only, or they'll only do, investor property on the commercial side. We can offer financing on all of these properties, and we do them for both investors and owner-occupied. So we're one of the few lenders that likes to focus on automotive properties, restaurants and bars, and daycare centers. So we see a lot of those. At a glance, we just like to kind of really talk about what our sweet spot is. Again, under $1 million, but we can go up to $5 million. Rates as low as 6.25%. The last few loans that I've looked at for some of our salespeople, I've seen rates in the 6 3/8, 6 3/4. Consistently in the 6s, and that is paying out yield spread as well. So it's a very aggressive program, and we're just slightly over the bank, and we're slightly better than some SBA financing out there as well. Again, cash out's available. We do loans up to 80% LTV, and yes, for those of you who may want to ask, they do cash flow. Some loans do at 80% at our rates. Okay. We do 5-year, 7-year hybrid ARMs, as well as our 30-year fixed, and generally 30-year amortizations. A couple of little things to focus on. Our minimum credit score allowed is 650. We do like to focus and do like to see over 700. We price those a lot better. Our loans do have prepayment penalty fees. Different options there as well. We're in the top 200 MSAs, although we make exceptions in rural areas as well on a case-by-case basis. And our borrowers need to be either U.S. citizens, permanent resident aliens, or any type of legal entity except trusts, which we don't lend on, or not-for-profits. Okay? And finally, our value comes in the way we underwrite. We provide solutions, and it's an alternate solution. We can do a full doc loan just like a bank, but we can also do light doc loans where we don't require tax returns, and we can do more streamlined process on our 1 to 4 by asking for less documentation. So a lot of different options with what we do. So the lowest rate solution, and I won't read to you guys, but this is in cases where we do either a bank statement loan on owner-occupied or a full doc loan on also on owner-occupied loans, as well as investor loans. So our rates, as I mentioned, are as low as 6.25, and our debt service coverage is 1.15, which is a lot more aggressive than most lenders out there that do the kind of business that we do. Again, like Doc, I mentioned business bank statements in lieu of tax returns for owner-occupied, and we also do, light doc for investment property, which we just take basically the property's income, rent rolls, and operating statements and underwrite towards only the property cash flow. Finally, the 1 to 4 program. This is one where we use a 1.0 debt service and we use market rents. It's a very aggressive program. We've been growing this pipeline over the last 6 months when we first, started really pushing it. So this is a very interesting product. There's a lot of competition out there for this type of product, but we are growing our own pipeline, and people like our product, like dealing with us, and use us specifically on this product for that alliance program to get additional income by sending us 2 or 3 1 to 4 investment property deals. So creating your online account, one of the coolest things we have, I think, is best in class, and really one of the only lenders that does this on the commercial side is we have a pricing calculator where you can go and price loans, 24/7, and basically have an idea of what you can offer your commercial clients using one of our programs. So if you go to our website, Silver Hill Funding, you can register and have access to that pricing calculator. You have access to a lot of the great material that Zach puts together. There's a marketing toolkit with many different strategies and even some customizable brochures that you can develop on your own. We do have great instructional videos and webinar recordings like this one that you can review to get a better idea of what we can do and how you can work with us. And Joe, you're the expert on this stuff, so I'll let you talk about this. But this is something that Zach put together, which actually is real cool. Zach, you want to talk about this, or Joe?
Go ahead, Zach.
Sure. So this is our commercial loan educational program for originators who may not be familiar with commercial lending. Instead of having this huge PDF file or any kind of class or course or thing you have to attend, we can send our educational course directly to your inbox if you just let us know you'd like to get it. So if you just fill out our form, give us your email address if you don't already have it, we can send some of our best educational resources to you every other day for a month. And by the end of that month, you'll have a much better idea about how the commercial appraisal process works, how the transaction process works, what to expect at each stage, not just with Silver Hill, but with almost any lender you're likely to work with. And you'll just have better understanding of terminology, things like that. So we're very excited about this. From what we hear, people like it a lot. So I'd invite you, if you're new to commercial lending or you just like to learn more, to sign up. And of course, it's completely free.
All right, thanks, Zach, and thank you, Juan, as well. Here's our contact information once again. We're happy to get in touch with you. I will say that for questions specific to deals, you can get a hold of Juan's team. Many of you already have a regional account manager that you can contact as well. But there you see our contact information. And again, since we will be sharing this presentation, you will have it as well at your fingertips. I do want to take a moment and thank everybody that joined the call today. And I'm going to turn it back over to Zach now because there may be questions that we want to field as well. So, Zach, what questions do we have today?
Sure. Well, I saw one question that I thought was very interesting regarding marketing early in the presentation. It said, what is the percentage I should use to give valuable content compared to telling people about the services I offer? I think that's a very good question. I think with almost everything you do related to content or with your marketing, the focus should be on providing value for the reader, and that should be the priority. One good thing to try is to write your article, your blog post, even your social post, and at the bottom say, if you like this content, if you found this valuable, let me know so I can make more of it in the future. And by the way, this is what I do. So I think people expect that information when they get to the part where you explain what you do, what your job is, what you specialize in. They've gone from the getting the value of the content portion to the following up portion. And that's where I think it's completely fair to talk about yourself. And you've already exchanged value. So it's a much better idea to do that toward the end.
See, suggestions on website developers, we really don't, refer folks. I see a lot of GoDaddy on TV, so
yeah,
that's one of the companies that I know of. But.
And I'll say between GoDaddy and WordPress, Squarespace, they have some of these editors called people refer to them as WYSIWYG, which essentially stands for what you see is what you get. And if you're not a developer, you're not familiar with coding, and frankly, very few of us are. These services are pretty much drag and drop, and that can help a lot. The last thing I'll say about websites is that while I think everyone should have a website, it could be that your digital headquarters is your LinkedIn profile. I think we see that all the time with originators, other types of lenders, professionals who have just thousands of contacts. Everything they do online kind of goes back to their LinkedIn profile. That's where they publish their content, which is free to do. That's where they connect with new people through the networking abilities of LinkedIn. So that's totally fine. If you don't love your website, think about where you spend most of your time online. It very well might be LinkedIn, in which case focus on that. And your other tactics, push that toward your LinkedIn profile. Like the very first step could be adding your profile to your email signature. That's a really easy one. And all you're essentially telling people you're talking to is, hey, if you like me, if you want to learn more about me, this is where I spend my time.
Okay, let's see. Joe, one last question, okay?
Yep.
Yeah, I saw one in here earlier about cash out on the bar. Okay. Question on cash out. If we do a cash out, can the borrower pay fees from the cash out proceeds? Yes, they can pay all closing costs from the cash out proceeds. That's not a problem for us. So again, as we mentioned earlier, as Joe mentioned earlier, many of you already work with a rep here. If you don't, reach out to me directly, and I'll get you in touch with a rep so that you can have your questions answered and maybe review a scenario and submit a loan to us. All right, Joe, that's all we got.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Keep an eye on your inbox in the next day or two for a copy of this presentation, and we wish you the best in finding more business, and, of course, look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you very much, and have a great day.